Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Gardening Under the Big Sky. This is one of those side projects that we talk about that while it doesn't directly affect the garden, it is going to directly affect our garden as much as how much bears get into it. And in Montana, that is a very real threat all the time, whether you live out in the rural areas where I do, or even in some of the suburban areas in the smaller towns, bears are everywhere in this state. So we're going to talk about the wiring, we're going to talk about the insulators, we're going to talk about all that stuff, and we're going to have some help from one of the local bear management technicians. So we're here with Brad Bayless today, and he is a bear technician?
Bear management technician.
Bear management technician with the Montana Department of Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. And we're going to talk today about putting in this bear fence. So Brad, let's talk about some of the gear that we're going to use for this.
Sure.
I guess let's start with the Energizer, because that's probably the thing that's going to power the whole thing.
Yep, that's exactly it. So, electric fences, they're a really great tool for, securing any kinds of attractants. I really like using them for, a farm like this, or a little homestead type of area, just because you can put it up and you can secure everything all at once, kind of all in one shot. And so as far as an Energizer, I prefer plug-in. Plug-in's best because you're going to get more power. You can do solar though, so if you don't have an outlet available, then go ahead and do solar. But the biggest thing that I look for in this is I just want to make sure that it's 1 joule. 1 joule of power, because that's going to be enough to deter a bear when it gets hit.
Now, there's some of those things I've seen when I was researching on the internet that said 0.7. Does that not deliver enough of a message?
Yeah, in 0.7, that's fine. I usually go for 1 just because you make sure that you're getting plenty there in case even there's some kind of short or something like that, a little bit of a short.
And so we had talked earlier, but my wife had expressed a concern about our cats.
Right.
So what's this going to do to a cat if it somehow triggered it?
Yeah, so an electric fence, for, people have been using them for a long time, on farms and everything else. And they're safe for people and animals and everything else. If your cat was to run into it, it'd give it a quick jolt, and I'm sure it would jump and maybe take off. But yeah, it's not gonna.
And so, if somebody though, like a human, were to accidentally touch this,
sure, what's
that going to do? Because I've seen stuff like in Alaska, the last frontier, the guy got shocked by his fence, and he looked a little messed up, and he was an older guy. So what does that look like? So
these they run on like a pulse system. It's not it's not like a continuous shock or anything like that. So if you were to get hit by it, it'd just be a quick jolt, and you'll know it right away. I've been shocked by them plenty of times. I grew up on a farm, so I'm kind of used to that. But it'll just, like I said, you'll feel it kind of tense your muscles up, and you'll know that you got a jolt. But yeah, it's not going to be anything crazy. Just temporary discomfort.
Okay, and then let's talk about the twine we're going to run around the property, because this was one of the things as I was looking at. This must be like a mile of twine.
Yeah, so this is, what is this, like 800 meters, something like that. But anyway, so I kind of like this poly wire, mostly just because it's really easy to work with. It's kind of handy, and it's fairly lightweight. You can get a bunch of it, and so there's kind of, the only thing to know, like when you're using this versus just like standard wire, is that it's going to have these little metal filaments within that, and that's part of what makes it so much lighter weight.
Sure.
And so sometimes when you're doing your connections, like I like to use these clips as far as connecting hot wires, or maybe connecting to something else. And so sometimes you just have to adjust the clip a little bit. Like if you're not getting enough juice to it, it could be that clip is not quite in contact with some of those
enough of the wire,
little filaments. Yep.
And so then we're going to use this insulator here. So if we can kind of talk about that a little bit, because this one you said was kind of different in the sense you could use it on 2 different kinds of medium.
Right. And so I kind of like these, and it doesn't really matter like what brand or anything that you get. But I just kind of like this style, because what it is it has, it's almost like a bracket on the back, because we'll do a lot of fences with T-posts, especially when it's something that we have to, just throw up really quickly, and get done. So what you can do is you can just kind of hook it on one side and then snap it in so it'll stay in place. The other thing though is it has these little screw holes there, so that you can zip in a couple of screws. So like for your place, since you have an existing fence here, it's really handy because you can just hold it up, zip a couple screws in it, and you're ready to go. And then it's nice too, because a lot of the insulators that you'll see, it'll kind of be like an alternating hook system for that wire. So you would kind of twist it to put it in there. But what's nice is with this one, it's just the pin. So you can just pull that wire through there. You can drop the pin, and then it actually, you know, is completely secure in there. It's not going to pop out or anything like that.
Well, that's a unique sound.
Some sandhill cranes, I think. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now the black cable, you were talking about using that for one of our gates.
Yep. So this black, this insulated cable, what this is going to be for is, so like when you have a, you know, like in your case, you have a normal size gate that you drive like a pickup through, something like that, or you have a cattle guard. And basically what you're doing is you're going to run this underground, and it's just going to help complete that circuit so that electricity is going all the way through it. Okay.
And so then on a regular gate, I think we talked about this here.
And so this is really handy, especially for, you know, if it's something that's like not like an existing fence, if it's something that you have to set up really quickly, because you can just take and basically take that poly wire and just tie it off on the end of this, and then you would just tie a loop on the other side. And so you can just take and connect that. And there's springs inside of these, so they'll give a little bit, and it'll hold that tension on your fence and help keep everything nice.
So if you've got that space, you can make it that little bit extra length, and then just use the spring to connect it.
Yeah, so if it's just something small, you know, you have like in your case back here, you have like a little like man gate basically that you got to go through, or you can just go ahead and connect that to it, string it across, and you're ready to go.
All right. And then this, now you were talking about this critter getter thing. Kind of explain the use of that and what it would be good for.
Sure. So the critter getters, we use these quite a bit. And so this is something that I would use in like for like a quick fix type of scenario. It's you know, kind of just a Band-Aid that you're putting on the problem. But what's nice is maybe for some reason, you know, you can't like run out to the store, you know, it's later in the evening and the store's closed, or you can't get enough materials to get a fence up or something like that. These can work really well for kind of protecting like smaller areas. So like say you have a chicken coop, you know, that a bear or something like that is showing some interest in, and you just can't get it fenced off. You can take these, and so they're just battery powered, and you can throw them up on the outside of the coop, or even you know, attach them to a post nearby, a tree, something like that. They just have like a little screw adapter on the back that you could just slip on the screw head. And so it's motion sensing, and so when it gets set off, it's gonna emit like a really loud alarm, and then it's also gonna flash some lights at them. And these are handy too because I mean, it also lets you know, because like when you're in the house, you'll probably hear it go off, and so you know that something's out there.
And so how do most bears respond to that? Is that shock of light and sound that they want to run from?
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, it's something, and we'll even use these for elk occasionally, elk and deer. Like if they're getting into a, you know, farmer's haystack or something like that, rancher's haystack. But it's one of those things that, you know, elk, deer, even bears, if they're around it all the time, they'll just kind of get used to it.
Gotcha.
Those noisemakers. So that's why I say it's just kind of a Band-Aid. It's something that's really good for maybe a night or two, just to kind of get you through until you can do a more permanent
But if they
solution.
set it off enough time, they won't care.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And is this... That's just your Leatherman?
This is just a Leatherman, yeah.
And let's talk about, this is the grounding rod, I believe, correct?
Yep. So this is the grounding rod. So you just want to make sure that your system's grounded to make everything safe. And so, yeah, you'll just drive this in, and then you'll connect this to the green side of your Energizer there to make sure that everything's grounded, and then you'll run a wire from your red side to your fence to make sure that it's hot. And then we have this.
Which I think is brilliant. And you just did this on the back of your truck.
Yeah, so this was kind of more so because I forgot one of my good tape measures. But anyway, so there are set increments that you want to have your hot wires at. And so it's like, I believe it's 8 inches, 24, and then I believe 42. I could be wrong on that. I might have to double check. But so anyway, you want to have these three be hot. So I just kind of put little plus signs next to them. And this is a really handy thing. And I've, done this before too, where rather than measuring every single post as you're going, you just mark a stick or whatever's around, or you can run some electrical tape, around it to know where you're at. And then you can just walk up to your post, set that up there, make your marks, and then.
And so the in-between wires are what then?
So it's more of like a visual deterrent.
Okay.
Yep, they're just neutral. There's no juice going through them, but just kind of a visual barrier. And here you have, you have more wires up, so you already have a little bit of a visual barrier. But that's just kind of how we do it. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there? You were talking about my fence when you came up and looked at it. That we got posts every, I don't know, what are they, 6-8 feet, I think.
Yeah.
So is that kind of what you're looking for, is the spacing?
Yeah, and you can go a little bit further with some of this stuff too, just because it's not very heavy. But just know, like, the as far as spacing between your insulators, the more that you have up there, the more solid your fence is going to be.
And you don't want to let this stuff sag. You want it to be nice and tight.
Right. You want to have it nice and taut. And so really the biggest issue with an electric fence and its effectiveness is vegetation. So, in the summer, all you'll have to do is just go around and just make sure that you're weed whipping underneath that bottom wire so that there's not a whole bunch of grass on it grounding the fence out.
And so now the fence, when we talk about using the fence and having it engaged, does it need to be year round? I mean, because they sleep for 6-9 months of the year. So how does that play out?
Sure. And I guess the best answer for that is, I would use it obviously, whenever they're out and around. But that being said, you're going to get other fringe benefits from this. So, this is going to keep other predators out of your yard as well. Like a mountain lion could come in and touch the fence and get hit by it too. So I would try to run it year round as much as possible. But that being said, it's not a big deal to just unplug it, or if snow is getting really deep, whatever, you can unplug it.
So let's talk about that, because we do get a lot of snow in Montana.
Yeah.
So can the snow not be touching that bottom hot wire, or how does that?
So if it touches it, it can ground out your system a little bit, and it'll basically just rob it of some of the juice and some of its effectiveness. And so, like I said, usually by that time, though, especially for bears, you're not really having to worry about it.
So is that something then that I need to turn it off in the winter, or if the snow gets high, or should I just leave it and it'll just be there? Or
you kind of personal preference on that. Okay. Yeah, whatever you'd like to do. But yeah, I think at the point when it's, if the snow's getting really deep and, bears are denning up and stuff, then go ahead and unplug it if you wanted to.
All right. Well, I think we're ready to get to work, man, and put this thing up. And so, right. And just real quick, we're getting this at a discount because of the programs and stuff.
Sure.
But there are programs, and not to go into them all now because I know it's hard to do that.
Sure.
But just kind of cover that there are programs that will help cover the cost of this for your property.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we work with a lot of different NGOs doing different types of bear safe projects. And so, like Defenders of Wildlife, they're a really good one. They'll do cost sharing up to a certain amount for like fencing projects, things like that. Right. We work with People and Carnivores quite a bit, whether it be on fencing projects or, maybe even securing garbage, things of that nature. American Bear Foundation. The list kind of goes on. There's a lot of programs out there. So I don't want anybody to ever, like, if somebody wants to figure out a solution for a bear problem that they're having, don't let cost be an issue for you.
And one other thing. Now, let's assume that cost is an issue, and just some of the things you can do to help prevent a bear from being interested in your place.
Sure. Yep, absolutely. So, really the easiest thing is just keeping your place as clean of attractants as possible. And so, like, just some really simple solutions. Probably the number one thing that we see in and around town is going to be garbage. So, if possible, having a bear-proof or bear-resistant garbage container, that's going to be the best case scenario. If that's not possible, just making sure that you have your garbage locked up, like in a building, in a garage, something like that, and then only put it out just right before pickup. So don't put it out the night before because that's when they're going to want to come in and get into it.
And if you're one of these places like we are, you know, we take ours to the dump.
Right.
So don't let it hang out overnight. Bring it out,
Yep.
take it, and be done with it.
That's exactly it. Yep. Keep it locked up somewhere. You know, don't leave it out in the back of your pickup all week, something like that, because you'll probably have some scratch marks on your nice paint job here. But yeah, so like I said, keep it locked up, you know, until you're going to run it to the dump. So garbage is a big one. Another really big one is pet food. So like dog food, cat food, things like that. So, you know, making sure that you're feeding that indoors, because if you're feeding if you have a bunch of dog food out, that's a big attractant for them as well. Even chicken feed, bears will kind of key into that. Trying to think. So bird feeders, that's another thing. Like, my best recommendation there is, I mean, it's fine if you have a bird feeder, but just take it out or take it down when bears are active. So, you know, during the summer, stuff like that, go ahead and take it down. Middle of the winter when bears are sleeping, go ahead and throw it back out if you want.
And, you know, and of course, a garden, which we experienced a couple of years ago with a black bear that decided it wanted to come in, and we had to put it down because it was attacking our chickens, and then decided it looked at me like it wanted to play, and I didn't think that was very fun.
Yeah, and actually just looking up the hill here too, so fruit trees are a huge one.
Yeah.
Like apple trees. So, you know, those are really good, like I said, to secure with a fence.
It ate half of my half one night.
I bet it did, yeah.
And you know what's funny is there's another tree up the gulch that's just free up there.
Yeah.
And we were going up to watch the blossoms because our tree was real. We only got half a tree one year because of some weird weather thing that happened.
Yep.
And I thought I was going to be able to, I went up there, and that tree must be 20 some odd feet tall.
Yeah.
And it was stripped to the ground. It was stripped to the ground. So, I mean, they are, I don't know how do they get to something that high? Because there weren't, I mean, there was nothing, no bark, no leaves, no nothing.
Well, a lot of times what you'll see with fruit trees too is they'll climb them, and then they'll climb them part way, and then you'll see a bunch of your bigger branches, they'll break off. So they'll climb them and kind of hang on them and break them.
Oh, wow.
And then they can just sit there on the ground and munch on them and stuff.
Wow.
So like for fruit trees, like an easy way, if you can't, you know, throw up a fence or something, is pick your fruit. So like just go out there, and like if you're noticing a bear in your yard, just pick everything that's there.
Yeah.
And then that's gonna help move.
Well, that year that we were doing that, we were literally within a week of picking fruit, just about there. Yeah. And he just stripped the thing. You know, I was up there cursing. My mother-in-law's on the phone going, "What's the matter with you?" And I said, this bear and I are going to have words, you know?
Yeah, eating it when it's like in its prime.
Yeah.
But shoot, what was I going to say? Oh, another thing too, that people don't really think about, but barbecue grills.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Wow.
So like a barbecue grill, because if you think about it, especially, you know, if you're grilling up a steak, something like that, you have all that grease coming down and collecting in the trap there.
Oh, yeah.
And so all of that just sitting there, like if you have that on your back deck. So
clean that regularly.
Clean it, or just lock it up. You know, if you have a garage, just roll it in the garage when you're done cooking. And
so, you know, in doing some research, somebody told me that bears can smell stuff for like 10 miles or 20 miles or something.
I can't remember what the exact distance is, but yeah, their sense of smell is amazing. I mean, that's kind of what, that's what guides them. So they're gonna, you know, especially in an area like this, because you're just right out on the edge. I mean, you're the last house on the road here. So, you know, they're going to be walking around, and they're going to hit different smells. And if it seems interesting to them, they're gonna come in and investigate. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like anything that has, you know, an odor to it could potentially be an attractant with bears. And so yeah, I recommend just kind of keeping that stuff buttoned up.
Well, I think we're pretty good to go.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So we're going to get to work. We'll show you some of the construction as we go along here. As Brad and I started putting the insulators onto the wooden posts, we suddenly realized there was an issue with those insulators and my fence. Okay, so as Brad and I got started on this project, we suddenly realized that the black insulators may cause a problem. And can you kind of indicate what you thought the problem would be there, Brad?
Sure, absolutely. So I use these black insulators quite a bit. Like I said, they're real nifty for clipping onto a T-post and stuff like that. But I kind of forgot about the old page wire on the fence here. And so, yeah, as you'll notice, these are pretty low profile. So they only maybe stick out, you know, maybe an inch, might even be a little less than an inch from the post there. And it's probably kind of tough to see from that angle, but if you look down the fence line, the fence bows a little bit. This wire will bow. And what'll happen is that'll come in contact with your hot wire, and that'll short out your fence. And
Okay.
so it'll just create a lot more issues. So since we did our first one like that, we decided rather than do it all over again, I ran into town and got some better ones. So these insulators, you know, I mean, it's the same function, but all it does is it'll kick it out several inches away so that it's not coming close or coming into contact with that wire or anything.
All right. And so, yeah, so we did that fortunately on the first post, and then didn't have to go back and do about 60 posts.
Right. Yep. Exactly.
All right. It took Brad and I about 2 hours to work our way around the perimeter of the yard, with Brad moving a lot faster than I was. When we finished that, we connected our drive-in gate. Okay, so this is our main driving gate with my wife's piece of art here that's got to get fixed.
Yeah.
But so talk to me about why we did this way. And again, because we have two different kind of circuits here, so let's kind of explain to people why that is the way it is.
Sure. So really the biggest thing when you're putting in one of these fences is I just try to make it so that, you know, it's as easy for people to operate in terms of, you know, doesn't change anything for you as far as use. So what we did is normally, like I said, like on a gate like this, you would take this black insulated wire. This is like your underground cable. And so you'd dig a trench and you'd run it underneath the gate here. What was really handy was, since you have the cattle guard here, I just kind of cheated and just went ahead and ran the wire right through one of the pipes, just because that'll help keep it protected. And then once it popped out on either side, then I went ahead and dug a trench and buried it.
Okay.
And so how that works is you connect that into your fence. So, you know, it's ran under the cattle guard, and then it connects on either end, kind of forming a U shape underneath your gate here. And then as far as connecting your gate, so you want to, you know, have all of your property be secured, right? So as far as connecting your gate, then what I did was we just ran this wire kind of in the shape of a C on this top end here. And so then I went ahead and connected that with that underground cable to the normal fence here to make that hot. And so this is a little different. You know, we get a lot of snow and stuff like that in Montana, but you want 3 wires to be hot. But I went ahead and we separated this bottom wire, and then I just have it connected with this jumper here. So if all else fails and, you know, say snow got high or something like that, you could take that off, bump it up here, and then you're not shorting out, you know, on the ground somewhere.
So, and basically, I mean, if we get 1.5 feet, 2 feet of snow, the chances of a bear trying to go under through a steel fence in the snow.
Yeah, right. I mean, and not to mention, like in this case, I mean, you're not even going to be able to open your gate. But
and is this kind of a gate like this, a driving gate? Is that one of the more least vulnerable places that a bear is going to try and go through?
You know, I think with the cattle guard, I mean, it might be a little more leery of coming through this way, just not wanting to step on it. But you kind of never know. I mean, it all is going to hinge on how
hungry they are.
Exactly. Yep. If they want to get in there and get your apples or whatever, you know, they'll kind of walk up and down the fence and kind of look for a weak point. So that's why you want to make sure that you go ahead and electrify everything. So
all right. So let's go look where the fence is connected to the Energizer, and then we'll look at that.
Perfect.
Okay, and so this is where it all connects up right here, coming off the Energizer.
Yep.
Which in our case, we've put in our chicken coop.
Yep.
And which is nice because it also connects to a power bar, so we can just switch it on and off as we need to.
Yep.
But when it comes out here, kind of explain this setup here then.
Sure. So, you know, once it runs out, so you have, you know, 2 different wires that are going to be running off of your Energizer. And so you're going to run this, you know, your insulated cable. And so you're going to have one that runs to the ground, and then you're going to have one that runs to the hot. And so your ground, which I don't know if you'll be able to see it.
Yeah, we'll show some video of that, but yeah.
Sure, we can show that later. But anyway, there's a grounding rod over there, so you connect that to that. And then your hot one, So what I did was I went ahead and just dug a little trench just to kind of keep it protected and out of the way, so you're not tripping on it. And then I brought that up and I went ahead and just ran that to the middle wire here. You just strip off the last little bit and wrap it around there.
And so as it's wrapped around, you've got these ones actually on that part where it's wrapped. So it's connecting straight to that power source.
Yep, that's exactly it. And so part of the reason why I did that, and I don't know if we talked about it before already, but like with this poly wire, it's really nice to use because it's lightweight, it's easy, real flexible, but there's just little tiny strands of wire that are in here. And so sometimes if you're not getting good, juice to, one of the wires, sometimes it's a matter of just adjusting one of these jumpers, one of these clips a little bit, just to make sure that it's actually coming into good contact. So that's why I have both of these right here. It's because that's where the solid wire is wrapped around the fence there. And so I know I have a really good connection there. And then, like I said, you just take it, and I just took, one to the top to connect that, one to the bottom to connect that. And then it's real easy if for some reason you want to disconnect one of them from the system. It's just as simple as pulling that clip off.
And again, this one comes into play if we get that really heavy snowfall, we can just disconnect that low wire.
Yep. You could take it off the system just like that.
And I don't remember if we mentioned this on the driving gate, but kind of give people the idea, what's with the low one? Because you don't think of a bear going through that, but how do they normally approach the property?
So bears, they're, they use their sense of smell a lot. And so as they're, moving across the landscape, they're going to hit something that smells good, and they're going to be, kind of nose to the ground following it. So, kind of what they're going for here is chances are that bear is going to be kind of down around here sniffing around. And what's really nice is,
his nose is wet.
The nose will be damp. They'll touch that wire and they'll get a pretty good zap.
And you were saying too, I guess in our property here, we've got the chickens, we got the ducks.
Yep.
I've got fruit, I've got a garden, so I've got plenty of attractants. And so I asked you about a bear trash can, but that's really not necessary. And kind of explain the thought behind that.
Right. So the reason why I like doing the electric fences is because it just kind of like, it takes care of all of your attractants at once. So rather than trying to, maybe pick all your apples and have your garden fenced and, have a fence around your coop or something like that. What's nice is when you do the perimeter fence, it's a catch-all and you take care of everything all at once. And so, yeah, that's why I really like doing it. I'm glad that you were willing to go with that solution, just because I think it's the easiest. And then, I still would probably try to keep my stuff, in a shed, stuff like that. I wouldn't leave a lot of smelly stuff out just because you don't want to bring them in to test it. But that being said, at least if you forget something overnight, you're not having to worry about it.
And let's talk too, when we did the intro at the top of this video, we talked about a black insulator.
Yep.
And so I don't know if you have one of those on. If you don't, that's okay. But we use these white ones instead. And if you can kind of explain why we changed to that.
So why we changed to that is, so these white ones are nice and long. They're like 5-inch insulators. And so the black ones that I had before, those are really handy for especially like doing a new fence or doing like a, fence where you're using T-posts, things like that. Both of these I think will clip on there, but anyway, it's the black ones have a really low profile, so you're only bumping your wire out from your post maybe an inch or so, something like that. So what's nice is with these 5-inch ones, just since we're going ahead and we're building this into an existing fence, is you have your you have your page wire, your chicken wire, your barbed wire, you have other things like that going on. So that just kind of gives you that buffer to separate it so that you're not shorting
because all those things will short it out and take the power down and make it less effective.
Exactly. Yep.
And so I guess, as we close out, if people are considering this, what, if you think about maybe some of the things that people talk about cost, they talk about hassle.
Yep.
What would your answers be to that?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's really not too big of a deal as far as hassle. I mean, you've seen it, like we throw the fence up and I mean, it's not going to change your life all that much. You might have a few extra handles or something that you got to open somewhere, but for the most part, like I said, with your drive-through gate there, it's no big deal. That's just the normal chain hookup.
Sure.
So as far as hassle, it's not too bad. And then as far as cost, like just don't let cost be the issue for you. You know, I might not be able to do everything, but that being said, I'll try to do whatever I can to accommodate you. So if you're wanting to, you know, come up with a solution for bears getting into trouble on your place, and you're wanting to, you know, secure your attractants from them, just get a hold of me, because there's lots of different programs that we can I can maybe help you out with cost, or, you know, I have some connections or relationships built up with different, you know, NGOs, things like that, whether it be Wildlife Services, American Bear Foundation, People in Carnivores, Defenders of Wildlife. Those are a lot of groups that we'll work with on a routine basis, and, you know, say, hey, these people are looking into a fence. And like Defenders of Wildlife, they're a really good example. They have a cost sharing program.
Right.
Up to a certain amount, they'll cover half of that cost. So
Right. I think it's $500 is
Yep.
their max. So,
Yep.
you know, if you can put in $1,000 for the fence, which I think we estimated my third of an acre here is probably $600-700.
yeah, somewhere in there. You're probably between like $400 and $700, and really where that's going to come into play is just the type of energizer, kind of like what we were talking about before. If you have a solar energizer, they're a lot more expensive,
right?
You know, and so like I said before, I think if you can plug it in, you always want to use the plug-in ones because it's just going to be more reliable.
Right.
But if you have to run solar, that's just fine too.
All right.
But
well, I think that'll do it, man. I appreciate you coming out and everything today, and we're all good to go. We feel safer already. So
yeah, there you go.
All right, man.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem, Tim.
Brad Bayless from the Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, and Bear Management Technician. So thanks so much for being here this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah, and if you're in the Upper Clark Fork, Big Hole area, anything like that, and you're wanting to come up with a solution for bears coming into your place, give me a call. We'll make sure to put my contact information on there and
Absolutely.
get a hold of me.
All right. Thanks a lot.